Logan stood in the doorway of the master bedroom, crowbar in hand, staring at the bed frame like it was an old enemy. The wood was warped in places, the joints loose, and one of the posts had split down the middle. It was the kind of furniture people left behind when they moved. Too damaged to keep, too heavy to bother hauling away. He'd found it 2 weeks ago when he first walked through this house on Azure Bay Street. The real estate agent had called it a fixer-upper with character, which was code for barely standing and full of other people's junk. But it was cheap, and cheap was all Logan could afford these days. "Dad, are we sleeping here tonight?" Kelly's voice drifted up from downstairs, followed by the sound of her twin sister Kristen dragging something across the floor. "Not in this room yet, sweetheart," Logan called back. "Give me another hour." The truth was, he didn't know if they'd be sleeping here at all. The plumbing needed work, half the outlets didn't function, and there was a persistent smell of mildew that no amount of bleach could quite eliminate. But the twins were excited. They'd already picked out their bedroom, the smaller one at the end of the hall with the window seat, and they'd spent the morning drawing plans for how they'd decorate it. At 7 years old, Kelly and Kristen still believed in fresh starts. They still believed their dad could fix anything. Logan wished he had half their faith. He wedged the crowbar under the bed frame's side rail, ready to pry it apart, when something made him stop. Not a sound exactly, more like a feeling. The same feeling he used to get when Marissa would go quiet during an argument, and he'd know, just know, that whatever came next would hurt. 3 years. It had been 3 years since the accident. 3 years since a drunk driver ran a red light on a rainy Tuesday night and turned Logan's entire world into before and after. Before, when life made sense. After, when nothing did. He lowered the crowbar. "Just get it done," he muttered to himself. "It's just a bed." But his hands wouldn't move. Instead, he found himself kneeling beside the frame, running his fingers along the wood grain. Oak, probably. Old growth from the weight of it. Someone had crafted this by hand, decades ago. He could see the chisel marks. The careful joinery. This wasn't IKEA furniture. This was the kind of thing you built to last. The kind of thing you built for someone you loved. Logan closed his eyes. He could still remember picking out the bedroom set with Marissa. They'd driven 3 hours to some overpriced furniture store because she'd fallen in love with a cherrywood sleigh bed she'd seen in a magazine. He'd complained about the price the whole way home. Now he'd give anything to make that drive again, to hear her laugh at his grumbling, to watch her run her hand along the curved footboard and smile that smile that always made him forget why he was annoyed. "Dad?" Kristen appeared in the doorway, her blonde hair pulled back in a lopsided ponytail she'd done herself. "Kelly says we can paint our room purple. Can we?" Logan wiped his face quickly and turned. "Purple sounds perfect, sweetheart." "You're crying." It wasn't a question. Kristen had always been the more observant twin. "Just dusty up here," Logan said. "Go help your sister. I'll be down soon." She studied him for a long moment with those gray eyes, Marissa's eyes, then nodded and disappeared. Logan turned back to the bed frame. He should just dismantle it, haul it to the curb, and be done with it. They'd brought their own beds from the apartment, cheap metal frames that squeaked every time you rolled over. This old frame was taking up space they didn't have, but something wouldn't let him. He tilted the frame on its side to get better leverage, and that's when he saw it. Words. Carved into the underside of the headboard, hidden where no one would ever see them unless they were taking the bed apart or moving it. The letters were crude, obviously done with a pocket knife or some other improvised tool, but they were deliberate, careful. Logan pulled his phone out and turned on the flashlight, angling it to read the message. "To whoever finds this. I built this bed in 1952 for my bride, Eleanor. We filled this frame with 47 years of love, laughter, tears, and 2 beautiful daughters. When she got sick, she made me promise I wouldn't let grief turn me bitter. She said, Love doesn't end, Thomas. It just changes shape. I don't know who you are, friend, but if you're reading this, maybe you need to hear that too. The hardest wood makes the strongest furniture. The hardest hearts can hold the most love. Don't throw away what can still bear weight. Thomas Brennan, August 1999. Logan read it 3 times. Then he sat down hard on the dusty floor and put his head in his hands. The message blurred as tears came, real ones this time, not the kind he could blame on dust. When was the last time he'd cried? Really cried. Not the silent tears that came at night when he couldn't sleep. Not the quick blinks he did when a song came on the radio. But the kind of crying that came from somewhere deep, the kind that emptied you out so maybe something else could fill the space. He cried for Marissa, for the future they'd planned and would never have, for the twins growing up without a mother, for the man he used to be, the one who laughed easily and believed in happy endings. And he cried for Thomas Brennan, whoever he was, who'd loved someone named Eleanor for 47 years and still had the strength to carve hope into the underside of a bed frame. Dad? Both twins this time, standing in the doorway, matching expressions of worry on their faces. Logan wiped his eyes. Come here. They came, settling on either side of him on the floor, Kelly taking his left hand and Kristen his right. I found something, Logan said. A message from the man who built this bed. What's it say? Kelly asked. Logan read it aloud, slowly, letting them hear every word. When he finished, Kristen said, What does it mean, love changes shape? Logan looked at his daughters. Kelly had Marissa's smile. Kristen had her eyes. Both had her kindness, her curiosity, her stubborn refusal to stay sad for long. Marissa was in their laughter, in the way they looked after each other, in the way they still crawled into his bed during thunderstorms. It means, Logan said carefully, that when you love someone, that love doesn't disappear just because they're not here anymore. It becomes part of who you are. It lives in the people you love next. Like us? Kelly asked. Exactly like you. So Mom's love changed into us? Kristen tilted her head. That's kind of cool. Logan pulled them both close. That's very cool. They sat there for a while, the 3 of them on the dusty floor of a half-broken house, with an old bed frame and a message from a stranger who'd been dead for probably 20 years. Finally, Kelly said, Are you going to keep it? The bed? Logan looked at the frame again, seeing it differently now. Not as junk to be discarded, but as something built with purpose. Built to hold weight, built to last. Yeah, he said. I think I am. It took Logan 2 weeks to restore the bed frame. He worked on it after the twins went to sleep. In the garage, he'd slowly been converting into a workshop. He sanded away years of neglect, replaced the split post, reinforced the joints. He found himself taking his time, being careful, treating the wood with the respect Thomas Brennan had intended. He'd tried to research Thomas and Eleanor Brennan, but came up empty. Whoever they were, they'd left no digital footprint. Just this bed and this message and the mystery of their story. The house itself was coming together, too. Slowly, but it was happening. Logan had fixed the plumbing in the downstairs bathroom, replaced the faulty outlets, and discovered that the mildew smell was coming from water damage behind the kitchen sink. An easy fix once he knew where to look. The twins' room was now officially purple, a lavender so light it was almost pink, which had been the compromise, after Kelly wanted violet and Kristen wanted lilac. They'd helped him paint, getting more on themselves than the walls, and Logan had laughed. Actually laughed. It felt strange, like using a muscle he'd forgotten he had. On a Saturday morning, 3 weeks after finding the message, Logan was installing the restored bed frame in his room when the doorbell rang. He wasn't expecting anyone. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. Logan headed downstairs, where Kelly had already beaten him to the door. Through the window, he could see an elderly woman on the porch, leaning on a cane, a man about Logan's age standing beside her. Kelly looked up at him. "Should I open it?" "I got it, sweetie." Logan pulled open the door. "Can I help you?" The woman was probably in her 70s, with white hair cut short and sharp blue eyes that were studying him with an intensity that made Logan want to stand up straighter. The man beside her was maybe 40, with graying temples and a kind face. "Are you the new owner?" the woman asked without preamble. Her voice was firm, used to being heard. "I am. Logan Fletcher." He extended his hand. She shook it with surprising strength. "Margaret Brennan. This is my son, James. We used to live here. I grew up in this house." Logan felt something click into place. "Brennan? I see that means something to you," Margaret said, her expression softening slightly. "May we come in?" Logan stepped aside. "Of course, please." They settled in the living room, the one room Logan had actually finished, with furniture that didn't look like it was held together by hope and duct tape. Kristen brought everyone water without being asked, then she and Kelly retreated to the stairs where they could watch from a respectful distance. "My father built this house in 1950, Margaret began. "Thomas Brennan. My mother was Eleanor. I know the place has seen better days, but when I drove by last week and saw signs of renovation, I had to stop by. This house holds a lot of memories." "Good ones, I hope," Logan said. "The best." Margaret smiled. "My sister and I grew up here. Our parents filled this place with love. Even when times were hard, and they were hard sometimes, we always knew we were safe here." "Your mother," Logan said carefully. "The listing said the previous owner had it for 30 years. When did she pass?" 1999. August. Margaret's voice caught. "Dad lived here alone for a while after. He couldn't bear to leave. Every corner of this house had her in it. But eventually it got to be too much. He moved in with me in 2001, passed away 2 years later." "I'm sorry," Logan said. "Don't be. He lived a full life. Loved my mother with everything he had, raised 2 daughters who adored him, and built half the furniture in town." She gestured around. "Is any of his work still here?" Logan stood. "Actually, yes. I'd like to show you something, if that's okay." Curiosity flickered across Margaret's face. "Lead the way." They climbed the stairs, the twins falling in behind them, and Logan led them to the master bedroom. The restored bed frame stood against the wall, the wood gleaming with fresh oil, the joints solid and true. Margaret stopped in the doorway. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. This was your parents' bed," Logan finished. "The previous owners left it. I almost threw it away." "But you didn't." James moved closer to the frame, running his hand along the post the same way Logan had done. "Dad, this is beautiful work." "There's more," Logan said. He knelt and tilted the headboard so they could see the underside. "I found this. It's why I kept it." Margaret read the message, and this time her tears came freely. James read over her shoulder, and Logan watched something shift in the younger man's expression. Surprise, then sadness, then something that looked like relief. "I didn't know he did this," Margaret said. "All these years I never knew." "He carved it after your mother passed?" Logan asked gently. "Must have. August 1999. That's when we lost her." Margaret was still staring at the message. "He was devastated. We all were. But Dad, he took it the hardest. They'd been together since they were 18. She was his whole world. He wrote that he promised her he wouldn't let grief make him bitter," Logan said. "He kept that promise." James spoke for the first time, his voice thick. "My grandfather was the kindest man I ever knew. Even at the end, even when he was sick himself, he was more worried about making sure everyone else was okay. He wanted whoever found this to know that love doesn't end," Logan said, "that it just changes shape." Margaret looked at him then, really looked at him, and Logan saw understanding dawn in her eyes. She glanced at the twins, hovering in the doorway, then back at Logan. "You've lost someone," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Logan nodded. "My wife, 3 years ago. Car accident. And you're raising these 2 beautiful girls alone." "Trying to." Margaret reached out and took his hand. Hers was cool and papery, but her grip was strong. "Then my father's message was meant for you. Don't you see? This bed, this house, this moment, it was all meant to find you." "I don't believe in fate," Logan said automatically. "Neither did I," Margaret said. "Until today." They spent the next hour talking. Margaret shared stories about growing up in the house, about her father's workshop in the garage where he'd built chairs and tables and cradles for half the neighborhood. She told them about her mother's garden that used to flourish in the backyard, about Sunday dinners around the table that was probably still in the garage somewhere under a tarp. James talked about visiting his grandparents here as a kid, about the tire swing that used to hang from the oak tree out front, about the sense of safety and love that had permeated every corner of this house. "When Dad moved in with me," Margaret said, "he made me promise something. He said, when I'm gone, make sure this house goes to someone who needs it, not someone who can afford it, someone who needs it." I didn't understand at the time. But the man who bought it from the estate sale, he flipped it and sold it, and it went through 2 more owners and nobody stayed. Nobody loved it. It was like the house was waiting. "Waiting for what?" Kelly piped up from the doorway. Margaret smiled at her. "For your dad, sweetheart. For your family." As they were leaving, Margaret turned back at the door. "Mr. Fletcher, Logan, may I give you some unsolicited advice? Please." "My father spent 2 years after my mother died living in their memories, in this house, in that bed, surrounded by everything they'd built together. And he almost let it destroy him. It was my sister who finally got through to him. She said, 'Dad, Mom didn't marry you so you could spend the rest of your life mourning her. She married you because you knew how to live.' And that's when he carved that message and moved in with me. That's when he started living again." Logan felt the words land in his chest. "Don't wait 2 years," Margaret said softly. "Your daughters need you to show them how to live with loss, not how to survive it. There's a difference." After they left, Logan stood in his bedroom for a long time, looking at the restored bed frame. Thomas Brennan had built this for Eleanor in 1952. They'd shared it for 47 years. They'd built a life in this house, raised 2 daughters, weathered whatever storms came their way. And when Eleanor died, Thomas had grieved. But he'd also kept his promise. He hadn't let it turn him bitter. Love doesn't end. It just changes shape. Logan thought about the last 3 years, the way he'd been going through the motions, surviving but not living. Working, feeding the twins, getting them to school, tucking them in at night, but not really being present, not really showing up. He thought about how Kelly had stopped asking if he liked her drawings because he kept giving her distracted smiles instead of really looking. How Kristen had started making her own ponytails because he'd snapped at her once when he was tired. How both of them had learned to be quieter, smaller, less demanding because Dad was sad and they didn't want to make it worse. He'd been teaching them how to survive loss, not how to live with it. The realization hit him like cold water. He found the twins in their purple room, playing with the dollhouse Logan had started building for them months ago and never finished. "Hey," he said from the doorway, "want to work on that together? I think we can get the roof done today." They looked up, surprised. "Really?" Kelly asked. "Really. But after we need to go shopping." "For what?" Kristen asked. Logan smiled. "For a mattress for that bed frame, and maybe some curtains, and I saw some paint colors at the hardware store that might work for the kitchen. I think it's time we made this place look like people actually live here." "Are we going to stay?" Kelly's voice was small, hopeful. Like, really stay? Yeah, Logan said. We're really going to stay. That night, after the twins were asleep, Logan sat in the garage workshop with a piece of wood and a carving knife. He wasn't sure what he was doing at first, but his hands seemed to know. He carved slowly, carefully, the way Thomas Brennan must have done all those decades ago. When he was finished, he'd made a small plaque. The words were simple. "This house has known love. Let it know more." He hung it above the front door the next morning. Over the following months, the house on Azure Bay Street transformed. Logan fixed the sagging porch, replaced the broken windows, refinished the hardwood floors. He found Thomas Brennan's old workbench in the garage and restored it, using it to build a bookshelf for the twins' room, then a coffee table, then a desk for himself. He learned that working with his hands was meditative, that creating something from raw materials gave him a sense of purpose he'd been missing. He started taking on small projects for neighbors, a cabinet repair here, a custom table there. Nothing major, but enough that people started calling him, asking if he had time. The twins bloomed. Kelly joined a soccer team. Kristen started taking art classes at the community center. They made friends in the neighborhood, tracked mud through the house, filled the rooms with noise and life and chaos. They stopped tiptoeing around Logan's grief and started just being kids again. And Logan started dating. Nothing serious. Coffee with a woman from the hardware store, dinner with one of the teachers at the twins' school. He wasn't ready for anything serious. Maybe he never would be. But he was learning to be open to the possibility. One Saturday, 6 months after moving in, there was another knock at the door. This time it was James Brennan, Margaret's son, holding a cardboard box. "Hope I'm not interrupting," he said when Logan answered. "Not at all. Come in." James set the box on the kitchen table. "Mom passed away last week." "Oh, James, I'm so sorry." She was ready. Her heart was giving out and she knew it. "But before she went, she asked me to bring you this." He gestured to the box. "They're Dad's journals, from after Grandma died. Mom said she'd been thinking about you, about how you'd kept the bed, about that message you found. She thought maybe these would help." Logan opened the box. Inside were half a dozen leather-bound notebooks, their pages yellowed with age. "I'll leave you to them," James said. "But Logan? Mom wanted me to tell you something. She said you gave her a gift, finding that message. She said it helped her understand her father in a way she never had before. So thank you. From both of us." After James left, Logan made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with Thomas Brennan's journals. He read about a man destroyed by loss, trying to find his way back to living. He read about the daily struggle to get out of bed, to eat, to care about anything. He read about the nights Thomas would sit in the workshop, surrounded by unfinished projects, wondering what the point of any of it was. But he also read about the turning point. About the day Thomas's daughter told him Eleanor wouldn't want this. About the decision to carve that message into the bed, not for himself but for whoever came next. About the slow, painful process of learning to live with joy and sorrow existing in the same space. One entry, dated December 2001, stood out. "I understand now what Eleanor meant when she said love doesn't end. I see her in our daughters, in our grandchildren, in every act of kindness they show, every moment of strength, every time they choose hope over despair. She's not gone. She's just changed shape. And maybe that's the greatest gift love can give us, the knowledge that what we build together outlasts us both." Logan closed the journal and looked around his kitchen. At the table where the twins did their homework, at the drawing stuck to the refrigerator with magnets, at the light coming through the windows he'd repaired. Marissa was here too, in Kelly's stubborn determination, in Kristen's quiet empathy, in the way Logan had learned to braid their hair and pack their lunches and show up to their soccer games and art shows. She hadn't left him alone to raise them. She'd left him everything he needed. He'd just been too caught up in grief to see it. That night, he tucked the twins in and sat on the edge of Kelly's bed. "I want to tell you something," he said. Both girls sat up, attentive. "I haven't been the best dad these past few years. I've been here, but I haven't been really here, and I'm sorry for that." "It's okay, Dad," Kristen said. "You were sad about Mom." "I was. I am. But your mom wouldn't want me to be so sad that I forgot how to be happy. She'd want me to be here with you, really here, and I'm going to do better. I promise." "We know you miss her," Kelly said. "We miss her too." "I know you do, sweetheart. But I want you to know something else. Everything good about me, everything I do right, everything I learn about how to be a better dad, that's all because of your mom. She's still teaching me, through you, through my memories of her, through the love she left behind. She's still here, just in a different way." Both twins climbed into Kelly's bed, one on each side of him, and they sat there together in the glow of the nightlight, and Logan felt something settle in his chest. Not the absence of grief. He'd carry that forever. But peace. Finally, peace. A year after moving into the house on Azure Bay Street, Logan hosted a barbecue. The backyard was full of people. Neighbors, the twins' friends and their parents, James Brennan and his family, even the woman from the hardware store who'd become a good friend, and maybe something more. Kelly and Kristen ran through the yard with a pack of other kids, shrieking with laughter. Someone had put music on. The smell of grilled burgers filled the air. Logan stood on the back porch, watching, and thought about Thomas Brennan. About a man who'd suffered terrible loss and still found the strength to leave a message of hope for a stranger he'd never meet. About love changing shape. James appeared beside him with 2 beers, offering one to Logan. "Thanks for this," James said, gesturing to the gathering. "Mom would have loved seeing the house like this again, full of life." "I think she does see it," Logan said, somehow. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" Logan said. "That message your grandfather carved? Do you think he knew? That someday someone would need to find it?" James considered this. "I think he hoped. I think that's what grief teaches us if we let it. That even in our darkest moments, we can leave something behind that helps the next person through theirs. It's how we survive as humans, passing hope forward, even when we don't have much left ourselves. Passing hope forward." Logan looked at his daughters, laughing in the sunlight, their faces bright with joy. He thought about all the ways Marissa lived on through them, through him, through the life they were building in this old house that had seen so much love already. He thought about the bed frame upstairs, solid and strong, built to last, built to hold weight, and he understood now what Thomas Brennan had really been saying in that carved message. Don't throw away what can still bear weight. Not just furniture. People, families, hearts that had been broken but could still hold love. Love doesn't end. It just changes shape. Logan raised his beer to the sky, to Marissa, to Thomas, to Eleanor, to everyone who'd loved and lost and still found the courage to keep going. Then he set down his beer and went to join his daughters in the yard. There was living to be done. Sometimes the things we're about to throw away are exactly what we need to keep. Sometimes a stranger's words carved in darkness can light our way forward, and sometimes a broken-down house on a quiet street becomes home in ways we never expected. Logan learned that the hardest wood makes the strongest furniture, that the hardest hearts can hold the most love, that grief doesn't end, it just transforms into something you can carry. He learned that when you lose someone, you don't have to choose between remembering them and moving forward. You can do both. You must do both. And he learned that a house is more than walls and floors and a roof. It's the love you pour into it, the memories you create inside it, the hope you hang above the door. Love doesn't end. It just changes shape. And if you're lucky, if you're paying attention, you'll find it waiting for you in the most unexpected places, even carved into the underside of an old bed frame you almost threw away. Thank you for watching this story. So tell me, where in the world are you watching from right now? And if this story touched your heart, what lesson will you carry with you? Sometimes we all need reminded that love doesn't end, it just changes shape. Maybe you needed to hear that today. Maybe someone you know does. If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you that broken things can still bear weight, hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Because every old house, every forgotten piece of furniture, every life that feels beyond repair, they all have the potential to become something beautiful again. Sometimes we just need to look underneath, to see the message hidden there, to understand that what we're about to throw away might be exactly what we need to keep. Thanks for being here. Take care of yourselves. And remember, you're stronger than you think.